Well, welcome to another edition of Take 5, and we are still talking about that subject we've entitled Living by Faith. We're going to stay here just a couple of more weeks, and I think we'll wind this thing down. But this has been a good series. I've enjoyed this series. I really have. I know I've been teaching the thing on Sunday and then all week long on these video devotions, but I have enjoyed it. It's been a learning process as well, and I'm so thankful for it. It's been great. We have been looking at Hebrews 11 and looking at all the men and women that are listed there, and going back then into the Old Testament and looking at their life story and their plight and their walk of faith and the things that they endured and the things that they had to do and their faults and failures and weaknesses and things like that. And all of this is so that we can connect with them, place ourselves in the text there, so that at the end of the day, you and I will know that the same faith that these men and women have, we can have it today. It's there for us if we will just walk by faith and live by faith like these men and women did. So that's what this is all about. And I think that God has given us some revelation, and I think this is perfect timing, because I believe like no other time we need to learn how to live by faith each and every day and moment of our life. Hebrews 11:32 says, "What more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah, David and Samuel, and of the prophets." We've been talking about these 6 men here the past couple of weeks. Today, or this week, actually, we're not going to be able to do it all today. We're going to talk about Samson and Jephthah. We may not get into the detail that we were able to get into yesterday as I was preaching on Sunday, but we're going to look at some things in the lives of these 2 men and just see what we can glean from this concept called faith. Now, both of these men, Samson and Jephthah, had some very serious and obvious defects. And I think it's necessary for us to understand the lives of these men, because it's going to cause us to have to notice that true faith in God is what brought them to the place where they were useful to the kingdom. It wasn't their past, it wasn't their experiences, it was nothing that they came from, good or bad. It was their faith that put them in the position to be used by God. And because that's the only thing that pleases God, right? Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith it's impossible to please Him. So that is the only thing, is faith. And when you consider these men and the issues that they struggled with, I know you'll wonder, why did they make it to Hebrews 11? Well, you got to understand that very often, more times than none, the Holy Spirit chooses men to become leaders that are really, an unlikely choice. But God will sovereignly select them and anoint them because He sees something in their heart that's not obvious to everybody else, and that's why He does it. And whatever the problem is in that individual's life, the Lord knows He can handle that. That is, if that man or woman will put complete faith in God, He'll deal with it. Now, if you look closely enough, you'll find difficulties and problems in all, even the greatest, but that's not the criteria by which God chooses to use individuals. On the other hand, you need to also make sure that you do realize that God cannot and will not condone sin or failure, spiritual failure of any kind. Please don't misinterpret what I'm saying here and think that just because these men were flawed, then we can go overboard and that justifies our repeated sinful failure. No, He won't condone that. But He will take a man or a woman that is flawed if they'll put faith in Him, and He'll fix them and change them and use them for His glory. That's His intention from the very start. Because from before the time He ever called you, from before the time you were ever born, God sovereignly knew that you were going to be crazy just like me. He knew that. He knew we were going to have weaknesses. He knew that, and His intention was for us to put faith in Him on a daily basis and a moment by moment basis, and He would take that faith and straighten us out and get us all twisted straight and back in line, and then use us for His glory every step of the way. That's what He was intending for us the whole time. God will help anybody with their struggle. God's not concerned about Samson's. He's not concerned about Jephthah's. And He's not concerned about yours and mine. He can help anybody out of anything except a quitter. That's one person that God can't help, is a quitter. Now, you understand the difficulties and problems that regard a Christian life, that's common to everybody. It's a growing process, and the process of growth is painful most of the time. But there's nothing that God can't handle. There's nothing that He can't cleanse. There's nothing He can't fix. There's nothing He can't restore and forgive and rectify unless you're a quitter. If you quit and refuse to get back up and refuse to keep putting your faith in God, there's nothing that God can do. Because when you quit, that really shows a lack of faith. And when you do not act in faith, God will not move, because that's the only thing that He responds to is faith. So please understand something. This idea of being a quitter, it's everywhere. There are literal millions of spiritual cripples in the Christian faith simply because they've quit. They refuse to get up and they refuse to dust themselves off, and therefore they tie God's hands because He's only going to respond to faith. You're never a complete failure until you completely quit. And when you completely quit, that's when you completely fail. Where would Peter have been when he walked on the water and then he sank in the waves because he was afraid? Where would he have been if he would not have cried out to the Lord for help, and if he would not have taken the Lord's hand when He reached down to take him? Where would he have been? He would have died in that water that day. He had to have faith to know that Jesus will hear me and He will forgive me and He will help me. He may rebuke me, but He will strengthen me so that I can walk again. It takes faith to do that. Now, don't get me wrong. The person that has faith hits the dirt just about as much as the person that doesn't have faith. The difference is the one without faith stays down and quits. The one with faith gets up like Peter and allows the Holy Spirit to clean them up, put a Band-Aid on it, correct them, and He will empower them to make the rest of their journey. Now, Samson and Jephthah are both examples of men that had to be persistent in placing their faith in God. Samson had what seemed to be a divine birth, but he struggled with lust and arrogance all of his life. And Jephthah had a jaded past, being born the son of a harlot, and that would have been embarrassing to most. And then on top of that, he made these rash, unnecessary religious decisions. And the only reason that either one of these men made it to the records of Hebrews 11 is because they had genuinely determined faith, and they put it in God each and every day. What do you say, friend? Let's forget about where we've been. Let's forget about what we've come from, and let's put our faith in God. If you've fallen down, trust that God can pick you up, and He will still use you today. It takes faith to do it, friend, and that's the only thing God will respond to. Well, hey, it's been good being with you. I've got to get out of here. I look forward to being with you tomorrow on Tuesday's edition of Take 5. Until then, God bless you. Have a great day. Remember, friend, trust the Lord. He will never fail you.